Happy Two Piano Tuesday!
Happy Two Piano
Woo!
Tuesday.
Do you like our
Welcome
high
back.
deluxe signs?
Yes, and it feels definitely later than usual because of the time change
It
and
does,
yes, fall back. And so
which
we
I'm
hope
never a
that,
fan of.
well, no, neither am I, because both of us are night owls. And throughout our 20 years together as a duo, we have definitely, basically, yes, spent
Like,
most of our lives being nocturnal.
and
So
when we say night owls, we really mean it. Like, we'll be easily up at 3 or 4 or 5 a.m., like continuing to brainstorm and work and practice and laugh and giggle and eat and drink.
So, how are you doing, Greg?
Well, I'm good. I voted today.
So did I. We hope
Good.
that all of you in the US have made your votes known, because that's an essential part of our democracy. And if you're coming from out of the US, we welcome you. And
Yes, we do.
yes, this is the selection that you hear in the background is from our debut recording called The Cuckoo in Sussex. And we thought it was appropriate because of the time change. And this is all about the cuckoo
Yes.
chiming in. Yes.
Yes, we tried to write a piece that felt like it was like suspended in time. And of course, the cuckoo represents the passage of time. So that's what that's
Right.
about. And if you still have a chance to vote in California, you haven't done it yet, there's a proposition for adding more arts in schools.
Yes.
That's the one thing I'm going to push right now. We want more
Definitely.
arts in schools.
That's right.
We're doing our best to get the art out there, especially through our music videos, in a democratic way so that everyone has access to it. But I think the best way for kids to really be introduced to, I don't know, the joys and the pleasures and the creative outlet of music is through education in schools. So that's my push today. Otherwise, we'll avoid politics.
That is a good push to make. And you're here because this is part 3 of our 20th anniversary celebration. On November 16th, 2002, we made our debut as a piano duo at Juilliard. And so leading up to that date, we are celebrating not only 20 years of partnership and friendship, well, actually 22 years of friendship, but also counting down our personal favorites from our music video of.
And we were actually talking earlier today about, the why we're doing this. And part of it is because we really do view our music videos as like works of art. We put our heart and soul into them. Not only are we playing the piano in them, but we, in most cases, are writing the music that we're playing or writing these arrangements. And then we're filming them ourselves, we're editing them ourselves. And we kind of see them as like almost like a Wagnerian Gewandhauswerke, like these like complete art pictures, and we made them to like last in perpetuity. We don't think of them quite as like the ephemeral TikTok sort of video. These are something that we hope will stand the test of time, and in 20, 30, 100 years, people may still watch them and reap some sort of meaning and inspiration from these videos.
Yeah, in a way, it sort of ages us, because I would say we're almost like on the older end of millennials. But what's been interesting throughout the past 2 decades is seeing how technology and the internet and then social media have changed the game, certainly universally, but for classical music itself and how it's disseminated and even in how it launches careers. And we do have to acknowledge that YouTube, since we were among the earliest adopters of kind of posting our music on YouTube. But it's just astonishing to see how ubiquitous YouTube has become. And also we have to acknowledge that YouTube did play such a significant role in, I don't know, like launching our career as a duo. So that's why
it absolutely did. And Trent mentioned that he shows his high school students, our music videos, and it's things like this that mean so much to us. We've heard from other teachers about some of their students who deliberately recreate our music videos shot for shot. They buy the music and they learn it, and they make the videos of their own. And it's our mission in action. And I see, it's just like, it's so satisfying and rewarding to see that. Thank you, Trey.
Yes. And actually, Chris, thank you for your comment. Before we resume our countdown, this is such a great question and thought-provoking. Honestly, if you had asked us 20 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined that we would be having this show and having this audience, because for us, it was almost a one-off lark experience where we just put on this concert together, ostensibly for chamber music credit at Juilliard. And we had such an incredible time together that it did happen to be the sort of the starting point, the launch pad, the fountainhead of what became our duo. But at that point, I would have just been like, oh, we're going to be off doing our own things. Certainly, I think I would have imagined still being friends with you, but I wouldn't have pictured having had all these travels and making all these videos and just sharing so much of our lives together.
Absolutely. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've kind of joked that the pandemic was like I don't know, midlife crisis where I got to be cocooned at home for a couple of years thinking about what and why and how. And one of the things I keep coming across in my own life, obviously I'm very driven and ambitious, and I know, Liz, you are too, but the things that have brought me the most joy and the most meaning have been the things that haven't been planned and haven't been forced, and haven't been necessarily my dream. I mean, my dream, sure, was to be a pianist, but like all the joys and the things that have brought me meaning from all that were the things I never could have predicted. And this duoship is absolutely one of those things. I just could never have dreamed this 20 years ago. But it's one of the things I'm most thankful for in life.
That's so beautiful, Greg. And actually, I've also throughout the pandemic, but even just through life and having different experiences, one of the things I've realized is that sometimes you have to put aside, what you envision for yourself, because sometimes where we are in life, our vantage point is a little bit limited, and we can only see what maybe we've been exposed to before, what we've experienced already. But maybe the most magical and meaningful things that have happened have occurred because it was almost just like, in a weird way, destined or fated, and I was open to receiving those. And I think that the friendship with you, my Juilliard experience, certainly our partnership as a duo, and then a lot of the things that have happened since, they sort of transcended my own dreams, if that makes sense. Like they were greater than maybe what I initially imagined for myself. And had I been, very like stubborn and sticking to that idea, I would have missed out on so many of, the just illuminating and beautiful and transformative experiences that have unfolded.
Well, I would like to cheers to that. And I have one of the classic favorite Anderson Road drinks, something we do have had many times after recording sessions, an Aperol Spritz.
Yes. And especially in Europe, that would be our drink of choice.
Yeah.
I have my faux wine. It's actually grape juice because I'm still a mama. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers to remaining open to whatever the next 20 years may bring.
Yes. And to being so blessed to have not only the friendship and the partnership with you, Greg, but to have all of you support us and just be so receptive and so embracing of what we share. So thank you so much. And with that. Oh, this is so beautiful. Thank you, Caroline. This is what we do, why we do what we do. So
thank you.
Today we are going to count down number 10 through 6. So
of our favorite music videos, not the most watched videos and maybe not your favorite videos, but these are our 10th through 6th favorite music videos. And we're kind of, the last 10 or so have included a few quirky ones. And this set I'm especially excited for because we're really hitting into some meat.
Yes, that's true. It gets serious now. Okay, so are we ready?
Number 10.
Number 10. Numero 10 is Lose Yourself to Dance. Turn off the drum roll. It's revealed. We're losing ourselves to the drum roll.
Lose Yourself to Dance is definitely one of my favorite music videos. And I think, because we're about to watch it here, and we'll talk a little bit as we watch it. But for me, part of why I love this video so much is simply because it's one of my favorite arrangements of all of the arrangements we've made. This is one of my, not necessarily to play, it's pretty challenging to play this arrangement, but I just really love the way this arrangement turned out. We were really inspired by the idea of a disco ball while writing the arrangement, because Lose Yourself to Dance is made famous by Daft Punk and Pharrell and Nile Rodgers, and they had such a disco vibe to this more recent song. And there's no way, as often the case when arranging music, we can like emulate the exact instrumentation or the sounds that are being created by the original, but instead we can try and infuse our arrangement with the spirit. And so this disco ball idea really stimulated our arranging creative juices, and you just hear the music constantly being fractured into pieces. And we took that minimalist kind of backbone and just made it a kaleidoscope of notes just scattered throughout the piece.
Yeah, that album, Random Access Memories, actually had a few viable options, but I think when we were listening and trying to think of a compositional point of view, that one stood out. And it also immediately, I think as we were creating the arrangement, we knew that we would have to create some sort of music video ode to the song, because it just, I mean, it has that disco vibe. And so as we were trying to find a venue, we realized there was sort of the perfect place, and that's the Moonlight Rollerway in Glendale, in Los Angeles. And this is a famous venue. It's been featured in a lot of sort of film, TV shows, you name it.
Yes, it is. It's been in dozens of films for the last like 40 years, and TV shows, including Glee and Modern Family. But most recently, I saw it in Euphoria. There was an extended scene that takes place at the Moonlight Rollerway. Why don't we start watching it, and we might throw in some commentary as we go along.
I think keeping up with the Kardashians also.
Yes.
I think Kim Kardashian has been in the building. So
all right.
Not when we were there, obviously. But.
So here is our Lose Yourself to Dance, number 10 on our countdown. And I see comments and questions.
Yeah, we'll get to those.
We will definitely get into some of those.
I'm posting the link for you guys. I love lights in here. The disco ball, so cool.
I remember being anxious that maybe there'd be too many moving lights on our faces, because it was hard to light our faces.
And again, thanks to Steinway LA, for allowing us to use your pianos.
Absolutely. We've asked them to put pianos in strange locations, and as long as it's feasible, they've always been game. This is definitely one example. And the Moonlight Rollerway was very strict. We couldn't have the pianos roll or put any sort of divots into the rollerway. So there's actually little cushions under each of the wheels. And Steinway's piano movers managed to get them just perfectly on.
So I have to give a shout out to you, Greg, for editing it in such a way where it looks like I can actually skate. You're a much better skater than I
am. It's true. I actually grew up on ice skates, so in Minnesota, so that wasn't hard for me. But the dancing parts were running into trouble with me. camera is actually on a rented wheelchair that we have
Yes.
rolling around the room.
And Victoria Sendra, who is the camera operator for our Taylor Swift video, is the one who's skating now and filming her feet. She was a much better skater.
Oh, so that's not you, Liz?
That's not me. I got to give her credit.
Here is very inspired by Lego.
Yes.
Yes, so Chris said mega props to the camera operator. Liz, you were mentioning Victoria Sendra, who helped us film the Taylor Swift video as well. She was the one in the skates, literally filming herself in the skates. She was rolling around the rink, like leaning over with the camera in hand, filming that.
But she has a dance background, so she's just so good with movement and was so much fun to work with. And, you know, usually that's how actually in all cases, our music video productions are so small. You know, like all these TV shows and film crews, they have tons of people. For us, it's literally like a couple people aside from us, or in this case, one person. And it was just so much fun. Watching that video makes me want to play that arrangement again.
I know.
It's been a while.
I really do. I really like that arrangement.
Me too.
It's funny. Some of these arrangements, you know, we have ideas and they seem like they're going to be fantastic, and then sometimes they just don't work. But and other times we have ideas and we're like, well, we'll give it a try, and then they work really, really well. It's always a toss up, but that one is definitely one of my favorites. I want to quickly
I guess like before we quickly go on, do we want to like address some of the questions that came up?
Don was asking about player piano systems, and we're actually going to discuss that at the end of this show, just because it ties into a couple things. But we have many recordings on the Spirio piano, Steinway Spirio piano, and you can certainly look into those recordings through Steinway.
And Dirk had a really good question. We actually have a number of composers in our friend-colleague group that we would love to work with. And so we've got some ideas that are some seeds that we're sort of planting, and hopefully it'll come to fruition. So stay tuned.
Yep. And Neil asked, what is the process of developing an idea into a complete composition? Do you ever have a hard time getting an idea for textures or colors from your head into actual notes? And that like ties into exactly what we were talking about just now with Lose Yourself to Dance. We always start with identifying what the spirit is that we want to bring in our arrangement, because we never want our arrangements to feel like a pale version of the original. And we want it to feel new and fresh, and very idiomatic to our instrumentation. We want it to feel like it couldn't have been played by anything but two pianists at either one or two pianos. And so we ask ourselves, like, what is it about this piece? And in the case of Lose Yourself to Dance, it was that original inspiration of the disco ball and the refracting light that drove the entirety of the composition. And we talk about this actually in our creative process often when we mention our mission. Our mission is like, that's like the figurehead. It's like we start with our mission and go from there. And our mission is to make classical music a relevant and powerful force in society. And so everything we do, whether it be talking to you right now or making our music videos or arrangements or performing on stage is in service of that mission. And so when we write these arrangements, we think about that mission. How can we make this music relevant and powerful to our audiences? And inevitably, we're going to be able to do that best by identifying the spirit of the music and bringing that to life as magnificently as we possibly can.
Good summary and a high bar that we set for ourselves.
I know.
But it's good to aim high. Speaking of aiming high, I feel like this next video is definitely deserves to be on the list, and it's my favorite number. So, are we ready for number 9?
Let's do it.
All right. Oh, that was not the right one. Let's do it different. That was way too short. Okay.
We need a better drum roll.
All right, here we go. Number 9 is Der Erlking, which is certainly one of our most cinematic music videos. It is based on Schubert's famous, or shall I say infamous, Lied, based on basically the German mythical character of the boogeyman.
It's
So
the best way
that
to describe
is-
it too.
Yes.
Anyone
so
from the United States. Yeah.
It's definitely, I think at that point, it was our most ambitious film
Oh,
in
absolutely.
2011.
It was absolutely the most ambitious film. And we're going to start it quickly. Just a backstory for those of you who are unfamiliar with this piece of music. It is one of the most terrifying storylines of all time. I mean, this would easily become a horror film in today's world. It's about a child who's dying, and his father is desperately trying to get him help from a doctor, and they're riding together on horseback, and the child continues to have these horrific visions of
Hallucinations.
Erlking, the big boogeyman, who ultimately by the end of the song comes and consumes and takes the child, killing him. And
We're a little late for Halloween, but I guess,
but
keeping the spooky vibes alive.
keeping this movie vibes. But this is like, quintessential, like, I don't know, German romanticism, of course.
Folklore.
This is,
Yeah.
yeah, and oh, it's worth looking into the poem, reading it, and just taking the time to invest yourself in this world, because it's so exciting and beautiful and twisted for those of you who are into those sorts of things. But it's also famous because this particular piece by Schubert, based on the lyrics, has destroyed many pianists' careers because it's so hard to play that, the repeated notes is extremely hard on pianists' wrists. And there have been pianists who have lost the ability to play because of working too hard on this piece and perhaps approaching it with a poor technique, or a technique that strains muscles and tendons in the wrong way. And so this piece is like both terrifying narratively, but also historically.
That's right. And also, we wanted to tap into the larger ideas, the symbolism of being so obsessed and consumed by the creative process, the artistic process, that it becomes dangerous. Anytime you are possessed with something or someone, you kind of lose your sense of center or your balance, and it can overtake you and consume you. So certainly the story is about this terrifying mythical creature, but it's something that all humans can relate to. We've all sort of gone to that point of no return, and sometimes have had to learn the hard way that that wasn't the good route to follow. And so we're sort of like, we're kind of exploring those ideas. We're not being super literal, but there is kind of a demon, if you will, in this film.
We'll get it started. So this was actually the first video and one of the only videos we've worked with a different director than the two of us, and it was extremely fun to have like that added creative vision.
Yes, and it's Maddie Brown, incredibly imaginative, super fun. It was a tremendously fulfilling experience to work
We
with him.
highly recommend you look up his other films. He's been rewarded many times by Vimeo for his short films, and he recently just finished filming a feature film. Um, and yes, we filmed that in the Steinway factory. Steinway has always been very supportive of us, and we've always appreciated their help. And this was one of the most memorable film shoots because we were filming alongside people making these pianos. It's worth noting that no pianos were actually harmed in the making of this film, and no pianists. I think a lot of it's just movie magic, but a lot of it is just Steinway giving us all of these leftover parts that we were able to use as we pleased.
Yeah, so one thing, so you're starting to see this through line of sweat. It actually was super hot because there was no AC on, and it was the end of June, so humid, hot. But we actually had water, like spray bottles, to kind of get more of the beads.
Yeah, eventually the sweat turns, well, oh, I won't give it away. Some people have mistaken that for blood. It's actually piano paint. It's the paint used to paint the pianos.
And those are the strings of the piano. You know, I was talking about getting consumed and so possessed by, you know, something that, and I actually think that's also one of the most seductive things about being an artist or being a creative profession, because at sort of at the most kind of inspired, you do become one with what you're creating or what you're performing. And sometimes you and I have had those moments of synergy where everything just lines up, and it's almost like you can't even connote a separation between the two of us. Like we are one musician or one mind. And I think, when you think about the great geniuses like Schubert and Mozart and Bach and Beethoven, they clearly were in communion with something divine. Even in order to create something kind of demonic, there was this almost like this spiritual connection with something greater than themselves that allowed them to create something that has a kind of timeless appeal or power.
Well, and when we hit that mark between us, when we find that obsessive part of ourselves and really go for it, it's a lot of work.
A
Um,
lot.
it's it's so much work. It's so much sleeplessness, and it's like, and but it's just that's also like some of my favorite memories from my entire life. Like
Yeah.
these moments when we've like just pushed ourselves to the hilt because we are so obsessed about something, and it's a weird thing. I mean, people say, do your passions, and a lot of your passions are just a lot of work, and they aren't that fun.
Yeah.
Um, but when we really, really tap in to that, which makes us the most obsessed and hits that, like, as you were kind of saying, divine plane, that's when it stops feeling like work, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
you wake up early and you just because you're so excited to get working on it, and you just
Mm-hmm.
don't go to bed because you're so excited to work on it, and it's totally unhealthy.
Exactly. We don't recommend this for like daily lifestyles, but
and it's completely ridiculous, but it's also like, ooh, like those moments are what I live for.
mm-hmm. And I think a lot of that feeling has actually occurred in the making of these music videos. So that the Doug L Clinic was a perfect
Absolutely.
example of that feeling.
Well, all the next ones are going to be as well.
That is true. Okay, are we ready to
Yep.
continue the
Yep.
countdown? All right, here we go with number 8. This one is an oldie but a goodie. Mozart Sonata for 2 pianos from 2008. And this
And
was
somebody has
actually,
already said that this was their favorite, so I'm glad
yes, I
at
saw
least
that
we got it on our
earlier.
number 8 list here. Thank you, Enrico.
And it is it's a work that we love. It's actually a work of music that we've been revisiting on our current and future programs because we love Mozart so much. But also this video brings up a lot of happy memories because this was early in our music duo, our music video collaboration, and also early in your relationship with Carl because we
Yeah.
involved him very actively in the making of this video.
We managed to reserve a hall at Yale University for, I think they just let us use it until we left the building, and then the doors locked behind us, and we were we couldn't get back in. But we ended up filming for like 8 or 9 hours, and we had Carl's help for a few hours, and I think he saw that level of obsession in the two of us for the first time. The two of us we raced around this concert hall. We were running up and down the balcony because every shot we were setting up ourselves, and then we'd have Carl press play, and then occasionally we'd have him like tinkering with the focus, and occasionally we'd have him moving the pianos around. But like after 3 hours, he had to get on with his life. So then we spent the
Yeah.
next
Well,
5 or 6 hours.
he was in
moving
med school,
pianos.
so
Yeah, he was in med school.
he kind of had a lot to do then.
Moving these pianos around. But why don't we start watching it, just so we
Yes.
stay on track with our time? But
This was one of perhaps our most meticulously planned videos
yeah,
because we were trying to honor the formal integrity of Mozart's sonata.
exactly. We wanted something that felt structured and geometric, that aligned with Mozart's ordered classical style.
That's a fun trick.
Yes, and that was an example, is listed. It's very planned out. We had to plan that shot. You can just make that happen in post. The fun tricks and are in service of this idea that there are two musicians making music, and there's a dialogue, and there's an interplay, and there's a friendship, and there's a dynamic.
And this was filmed at Yale University at Sprague Concert Hall, and it's such a beautiful venue. But you and I and Carl were running all over this auditorium.
Oh, I was so sweaty. We also structured the video to align with the sonata form. The exposition and the recap are filmed similarly, but in the recap it evolves. So you'll see many of the same shots, but at the same kind of A and B themes, but done differently. And then the development is filmed in a totally different manner, all because we're trying to use the video to help explain this very formal music to an audience. You haven't aged today. I look at myself and I feel like I look so young. I look at you and I'm like, that's what I look at when I perform with you today.
So here's when things get adventurous. Now you see the missing piano. We moved those pianos ourselves.
Yeah, Carl had left at that point.
So here we have our solos going back and forth.
I mean, Mozart writes the music here differently. It felt like we needed to film it differently.
We have these two personas, right? The casual ones and then the more formal.
Yes. It's to align again with the music. The music is so playful and so inventive.
Your face is there.
We've actually been performing this on our recent recital programs. We play it differently now.
Yeah.
Over many years later.
And it's on our Mozart album, An Amadeus Affair.
This is the first video we started to explore splitting the screen. We'll see that later today. That was the first time as an editor I ever tried to experiment with slow motion. Maybe not the first time, but it's always so hard with, singers get away with it so well, but piano editing in slow motion often is really challenging because if the fingers don't align, somebody will inevitably complain. Often that's Carl, my husband. He loves to see everything synchronized and just right.
And I feel like this video explores the friendship, but also like the slight rivalry, between the duo.
It's always really hard with a video ending a piece with no audience. It's like, what do we do? I remember we filmed the ending and didn't know what to do and just decided to use just like us walking over to get the camera, like nothing much more.
Yeah. That was fun. And I think it got a lot of viewers based on YouTube from, I think there's like a huge Asian contingency, like viewers in Japan and Korea who really got into it because I don't know if there was like a storyline and a drama or something that revolved around this piece or just this idea of duettists. But clearly, I think this also fits in that category of like, there's like the friendship and like a slightly romantic vibe between the two of us, but above all, this joy in collaborating and making music together.
Yeah. Before we move on, I like when I watch this particular video, it makes me long for more of this sort of filmmaking from classical musicians. As classical musicians, it's hard enough to play our instruments at a level high enough for the concert stage, but I wish more filmmakers would get involved in classical music because the music itself is so creatively fulfilling. There's so much in there, and like I think that there could easily be videos like this of every Beethoven sonata, every Mozart sonata, every piano piece out there that helps visually, through the visuals, explain some of the inner workings of the music. There's so much creative potential in this music, and I know more and more people are exploring the video potential, but I just have a passionate plea for other classical musicians to consider creatively pushing themselves further in the realm of video making, or maybe
Especially
finding filmmakers who are willing to push themselves into this field.
especially the non-programmatic pieces,
Yeah,
because there you have a complete freedom of interpretation, um, visually, cinematically. If you have, say, like a selection from an opera, usually there's a storyline or something
yeah.
that's very kind of literal to jump off of. But with this piece, for example, we just used our imaginations and was inspired by the form and the actual compositional elements. So,
Yes. Let's move on to number 7. And
okay, here we go. Number 7.
oh,
We really love this one, Saturday Night Waltz from 2015.
yes, I'm gonna start playing this just again to keep us on time.
Okay.
But it's number 7 for a reason.
Yeah, we love this one.
Looks like it's stuttering a little bit, but hopefully it'll smooth out as it goes along. This is a video on the simpler end of some of our music videos. Oh, actually, this particular shot, the drone flew into the barn and was destroyed. Thankfully, we had filmed these shots prior to that. But there's
Collateral damage. Oops.
Drone. But one of the things I just love about this video are the shots of the hands. I really think of all of our videos, this has some of the most beautiful hand shots that show the balletic interplay of 4 hands at one piano.
It's funny, yeah. You're talking about hands. I also love the macro, like the atmosphere. I love we had a fog machine, so it created this mist in the air. And we filmed at dawn, actually even before the rising of the sun. And the light was just so magical at that hour.
Unfortunately, dawn is very brief, so we had to film it 2 days in a row at dawn to get all the shots we wanted, which meant we were waking up at like
3:45. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is, as you may have heard earlier, not our jam.
No.
I really feel like our hands are dancing. This intimate, gorgeous dance.
And this was filmed in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington State in the summer. And so it was freezing at dawn, but then we ventured out for some of the B-roll, which you'll see here. And whew, the ground was wet and it felt way less romantic than it looks.
Yeah, at the conclusion of this little walk through the fields, we were covered in those little sticky seeds that affixed to your clothing. And we're basically walking through like the marsh.
Yeah, exactly. So it's wet and mushy, but it looks great on film.
It's also kind of the same story for every one of our romantic themed music videos. Like, there's nothing romantic about the act of filming these things, but the hope is that it gives the illusion.
But we actually gave a recital there in the barn, and it was actually a very special venue, the Olympic Music Festival.
These morning shafts of light through the barn, I just thought, wow. It was also, I don't know, we had a space heater in there right behind the piano because it was unbearably cold at that hour. Oh.
So intimate.
It's so intimate.
I personally, though, I feel like I was born in the wrong century. So I'm kind of like old school romantic with a capital R. I love anything with nature, and music. I feel like it so beautifully complements the other. And I know so many composers and artists and poets over the years were inspired by nature. So anytime we have a shoot outside, it's like not the best, physically and practically, but in terms of like the philosophical aesthetic vibe, it's always great.
Well, and actually along those lines, I've again, pandemic, been thinking about some of the greatest moments in my life, and we've played on countless stages for audiences of thousands, but those greatest moments often are just with one other person in a quiet space. I mean, just sitting and having dinner with my husband all by ourselves is just one of life's greatest pleasures. And that particular video really celebrates a quiet intimacy that is so special.
Yes, definitely. Before we move on, I forgot to post the link for number 8. So now the Mozart Sonata link is there. And again, you can watch these all at your leisure.
And actually, we encourage you to share them with your friends, especially things like Saturday Night Waltz, which hasn't been viewed as many times as some of our other videos.
Or Lose Yourself to Dance.
Or Lose Yourself to Dance. Yeah. Please share them with your friends and family, because we've made them to get audiences excited about classical music.
All right, are we ready for our finale for today's show?
Oh, it's a good one.
Okay, This is numero 6, as they say. And that is one of our latest videos, Islamei. And this was you've mentioned the pandemic multiple times during this broadcast. This was the pièce de résistance, the kind of the pinnacle of our pandemic projects.
Yeah, this is we took the classic monstrous impossible to play piano piece by Kirev, Islamei, and reworked it to be performed by multiple pianos. The two of us were situated 3,000 miles apart. We couldn't even get into a concert stage. We ended up filming the entire thing in each of our bedrooms. Our pianos were in our bedrooms, and we just put backdrops behind the piano and filmed this entire video. But we had done it a number of times at this point in the pandemic. And so we had kind of learned some of the tricks of the very unusual trade and came up with this video.
And it was the kind of project that we could only do in an unconventional way. In other words, we couldn't perform this live because this is an arrangement for multiple pianos. Yes, Jim, it's for a dozen pianists, and so we had to be extremely methodical about recording each part and obviously filming each part separately and then
and recording them in sync 3,000 miles apart, filming them in sync. We had iPads and kind of off in the distance in the pianos with the other person performing, so we could kind of get visual cues, and then we had the earbuds in our ears, so we're listening to the other person trying to manage it. Because of 3,000 miles separation, it was impossible. I mean, the speed of light didn't allow us to film or record anything simultaneously. So one person would record a section, the other person would add on top of that, then the other person would add on top of that, and we just kept adding on top of it. And I don't know. It sounded way too prideful, and I probably shouldn't say it.
Go for it, Greg. Go.
Own it. I'm not gonna say I kind of. I like this arrangement more than the solo version, because of
them fighting words.
Because we were able to use the additional pianos to add some symphonic color, but because we weren't having to, I mean, we were certainly jumping around the piano a lot, and you'll see that in the video, but we didn't have to, there's never this moment where you have to jump down to a low note, which delays a beat. So we were able to have a more precise rhythmic backbone to the performance. And especially so in the first third of the piece, we were able to use that to give it this kind of playful rhythmic jive. But then in the second half of the piece, actually in the last third of the piece, we were able to use that to our advantage to give it a speed and a velocity so that it races headlong towards the conclusion in a way no solo pianist could ever do. And it holds the piece together a bit more tightly than I traditionally hear from solo pianists.
I mean, major kudos to any solo pianist. We've heard some blistering, phenomenal performances by soloists of this work. And actually, my former teacher, the late Vladimir Lechkis, he always wanted me to play this piece on my own. I never got around to it because I was just so daunted by it. It looked completely exhausting to play this as a soloist. So it felt almost like this, kind of reverting back, I almost felt like I was able to do it with you, and almost as sort of a tribute to his spirit, because it ended up being, as we were talking about with passion projects, really challenging and painstaking, and yet it's very satisfying.
Very satisfying. I mean, I had just ripped up my knuckles. I had bloody fingers for weeks after filming this.
And it was the dead of summer. Yes.
Dead of summer in the heat of our bedrooms. But let's give it a start, and maybe we'll add some insights as
let's do it
along. Here we go.
Also, lots of outfit changes.
Oh yeah, because we each had 4 outfits and 14 piano parts. It's essentially a battle. We considered the pieces a battle between Team Liz and Team Greg. So you'll constantly see this sense of fight and one-upmanship throughout.
I'll mute myself.
So this arrangement actually began as a piece I wrote for the 5 Browns for 5 pianos based on Islamei, and we reworked it in this fashion. So there is a version of it for 5 pianos out there, but I plan to rewrite it after having done this, because the experimentation between you and me, Liz, was illuminating and helpful. And I also kind of want to write a version that's just for 2 pianos that can be played in performance someday.
And you can see all those small squares were almost like the chorus or the orchestra in the background.
And although my piano doesn't sound terribly in tune, I had the tuner come at least 3 times while we were recording this. It's just that I had to learn one of the piano parts of the, how many did I learn? 7? I mean, the bulk are 3 piano parts. I would learn one piano part, and then we would record that part, and just have a tune for that. obviously they'll never play.
You know, looking at this grid is kind of reminding me of the Mozart Sonata video, but it's like on adrenaline.
Well, and everything from here on out to the end is all about just building the most massive climax we can muster. Watching this is obviously stressing me out so much.
And shout out to my husband for being a crew guy. I have heart palpitations. Oh, Greg, you're muted.
Thank you. Did we include the link to that one? Because
yes, it's
good.
up there. Yeah.
I realized, and I don't know how many people will ever notice, but like that was, I uploaded into our system an earlier draft of this. So the version that you'll link to, if you share it with your friends, has even more edits.
Yes. And for context, this is going to be the grand finale of our Portland Piano International virtual extravaganza. You know, in lieu of performing there, Portland Piano graciously kind of helped us basically share our music virtually through the pandemic. And we had a deadline and we were juggling so many new music videos and compositions and other projects for the extravaganza that it was down to the wire with the editing of this.
Oh yeah.
And that was what
Oh, I
also added that.
remember. I didn't sleep the night before because my computer was trying to render all like 14 of these like pianists in action, and it kept cutting out, and I was nervous I wasn't even going to
Panicking.
render out in time for the
Yeah,
video for the presentation. But
but it's a
thankfully we
very
did.
indelible memory from 2020.
So somebody was asking earlier about player pianos, and I just wanted to add right now after we watched that there was something about making this video and an arrangement and due to the circumstances of the pandemic that ultimately broadened our horizons about our relationship between technology and our craft. I really do love just the acoustic version of piano duo playing. I love when technology isn't involved and the two of us just get to play together from heart to heart. But we realize that there's a lot. There are more options than we had ever considered before, and has planted a seed for a current set of projects we're actually working on for our 2023 performances that will feature us with Steinway's Spirio piano, this Steinway's new player piano, and we're creating something we've never done before to share in our live performances. And if you're able to come see us in 2023, we recommend you do, because there are some very new surprises in store that never would have happened were it not for that particular video.
Yeah. So as we look to the past, we're also moving forward in the future,
Yes.
or toward the future. And
Yes.
on that cheesy note, we are going to bid you adieu for the penultimate episode of our anniversary countdown. Please be sure to join us next week. And yes, we are playing in San Francisco in April 2022 at Chamber Music San Francisco. You will see the Spirio in action there. Oh,
Yes.
let's hear.
And
No, we're not going to outer space.
well, who
Maybe
knows? We need to be
that's
open to whatever
oh,
comes our
that's
way.
true.
That was
That
our
is
advice
true.
earlier.
Well,
But
first of all, I hope that we are healthy and alive. That's my basic
yeah,
hope.
yeah, and at peace with the world. But maybe we could say something about just quickly the next year,
Sure.
or next couple of years. We have a few albums we're working on. We've been writing lots of new music, while Liz is focusing on motherhood. We like the idea of just kind of not traveling quite as much, but that doesn't mean we haven't been working as hard. Um, there are a couple albums we're working on. We have these Spirio projects, which are really weird and new. And in addition to next week's live stream on our actual 20-year anniversary on November 16th, which will be next Wednesday, we will be releasing a new music video.
Yes. So you're going to have to tune in next week for more information about that video. You can also sign up for our mailing list if you go to our website, andersonroad.com. And always, as always, be sure to check out our social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, mostly. Those where we usually post for kind of like the latest updates and also special tidbits from this countdown. We may show some more behind the scenes material, and maybe this week launch a poll, because I'm kind of curious to see what
Oh.
some of your faves are.
Okay. But for now, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all of your participation. It makes it feel so interactive and fun. And
Yes. And be
I know.
sure to join us next week,
That's right.
Tuesday, at the same time for the final episode of our top 20 favorite music video countdown.
Thank you so much to all of you, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.